Before we get started with this week's episode of The Breakdown, I just wanted to issue a little bit of a correction. Way back in episode 1, I mistakenly referred to Doug Schweitzer as the Attorney General. The correct term I was corrected on is Solicitor General. So one of the things that we believe very strongly at The Breakdown is it's very important to be accurate, and when we make a mistake, we do want to make sure that we correct it. So if you catch us on anything, please let us know, because there's nothing wrong with admitting when you're wrong. In fact, it feels really, really good. I feel like I deserve a reward right now, like a cookie. This time on The Breakdown, we're taking a look at what the Education Act means for students and teachers across Alberta. We're catching up to the end-ish of the Alberta Carbon Tax. We're doing an update on the UCP Leadership Contest Investigation / Scandal. We're breaking down our meme of the week, and for once, we're going to end on a positive story. But we'll get to all of that in due course. Right now, it's time for The Breakdown. It has now been almost 50 days since the provincial election, and as you can see, there is no work started on the North Calgary High School, nor have there been any announcements made on any progress that has moved us any closer to getting the high school built, despite assurances from our new MLA that there would be. What has happened in education is that school boards across the province are starting to get ready for what they believe the UCP are going to be doing to the education system, and the consensus across the province from school boards seems to be that they need to be getting ready to be told to do more work with no funding increase. Even if we ignore the removal of critical protections for LGBTQ youth and GSAs, by the way, happy Pride Month everyone, and we ignore the fact that one of the UCP election promises was to throw out the curriculum update that was the result of hundreds of thousands of hours of work by parents and teachers, there are two big numbers that should have everyone nervous. The first number is that the Calgary Board of Education is facing an influx of 1,800 new students with no expected increase in budget. And in the case of the CBE, there's an expected $40 million shortfall from what they need to take care of those students. The second number that should give everyone cause to take a closer look at what changes to the Education Act is going to bring is 1,700. That's the number of additional students that would be added to the Calgary public school system with the raising of the allowable age to access public education from 19 to 21. That means students who are, for whatever reason, unable to complete high school in the typical 3 years would now have a full 6 years to do so. Now, I fully believe that all Albertans should have access to a quality education, but there's some nuance here that needs to be acknowledged. Students that aren't able to complete high school in 3 years have some sort of obstacle in their way. Whether those obstacles are related to learning disorders or life circumstances, the supports that they need to get through school are generally more than the average student. Again, to be clear, these students deserve an education as much as any other student, but because they tend to have higher needs from the education system, they cost more to educate. But the UCP has made no commitment to increasing funding to match these additional students who have higher needs than the average student. And because the UCP haven't given any indication to appropriate funding, school boards across the province have been sending letters home to parents asking them to prioritize what they want to see from their child's education, because the expectation is that some programs or supports are going to need to be cut. Let's be clear, education is the silver bullet. Our class sizes are way too big, and too many of our students have to travel way too far to get to these overcrowded classrooms. There's no greater investment that we can make in the future of our province than our children's education. What the UCP seem to be planning to do is ask Alberta teachers and schools to do significantly more work with no appropriate funding to support that work. So if you would like to know why it is that the UCP don't seem to be willing to make appropriate funding commitments, pause this video right here and send the Minister of Education, Adriana LaGrange, an email at the email address right here. Or you can give her a call at 780-427-5010 and ask her to commit to making sure that all of our kids get the education that they deserve.
Hey Nate, you seem really upset by all this. Do you want a cookie?
I really appreciate that, actually. What kind of cookies are they?
It's chocolate chip.
Chocolate chip? Okay. Are they dry at all?
I mean, a little.
Okay, I should probably wait. I don't want to get all gummy, but I will definitely take you up on one of those in due course.
Okay.
As the UCP celebrated Carbon Tax Freedom Day on May 30th and bragged about killing the carbon tax, there were a couple of interesting things that happened. First of all, to be clear, the UCP haven't actually killed the carbon tax. They've only killed the part of it that most voters see. What they won't quite so enthusiastically tell you about killing the carbon tax is that they're keeping the tax on heavy emitters. So why are they doing that? The reality is that the carbon tax does drive change in behavior, but more importantly, it generates a lot of money, and that's not money that the UCP want to see go away. The UCP also went on at length on Thursday about how they would be voting to kill the carbon tax, but two pretty ironic things happened. First of all, the smoke from the wildfires up north blew down to Edmonton, and it was so severe that in order to preserve the air quality in the legislature, they had to close the vents during the third reading. Jason Kenney actually had a scheduled event, a celebratory event, at a nearby Esso in Edmonton, but because the smoke from the wildfires was causing such a significant drop in air quality, that event actually had to be cancelled. Now, I want to be clear, the effects of the wildfire and its smoke on Albertans, particularly the Albertans who were in the path of the fires, is incredibly heartbreaking and tragic. But the UCP government cancelling a program that was not only designed to change human behavior, but that funded programs that decreased the human contribution to climate change, which the UCP government admits on its website is a real thing. Climate change is affected by human factors, including the burning of fossil fuels, which in turn causes an increase in frequency and severity of forest fires, displays a level of short-sightedness that is truly impressive. But let's be clear, the fact that the UCP had their celebratory press conference cancelled because of wildfires isn't ironic or funny. It's tragic and it's terrifying, because not only are we at a place where smoke in the skies is the new normal, we currently have a provincial government who, in spite of that fact, has yet to put forward any sort of meaningful plan to combat the climate change that they've now decided to contribute more aggressively to.
Cookie now?
In due course.
Okay.
Scandals surrounding the UCP candidates and the UCP leadership contest continue to drag on, and it just keeps getting worse for them. The investigations into allegations of fraud, forgery, improper inducement, and bribery by newly elected MLA for Calgary East continues to go on, and as much as the UCP seem to want to make it go away, they just seem to be doing an amazing job of making it worse. If you haven't heard, Peter Singh is the MLA who has been accused of offering people significant amounts of cash to vote for him in his nomination, as well as signing multiple people up for UCP memberships using his car repair business as a front, including multiple accusations of credit card fraud in order to sign up those memberships. In fairness though, despite the RCMP raid on his business where they temporarily impounded one of his business's computers and the presence of the ongoing RCMP investigation, the new executive director for the UCP, yeah, the old one quit recently, is holding the party line, saying that Singh maintains his innocence and that the incredibly thorough internal investigation that the party did found no evidence of wrongdoing. But that's the smaller of two big developments in the last week. The bigger development has to do with the investigation into the UCP leadership campaign. For weeks there have been calls for new Justice Minister and Solicitor General Doug Schweitzer to bring in an independent prosecutor and for him to recuse himself from any elements of the investigation into accusations of not only voter fraud and corruption in the UCP leadership campaign, but also accusations that the entire Jeff Callaway campaign was orchestrated by Jason Kenney. Up until late last week, Schweitzer refused to bring in an independent prosecutor, and Jason Kenney backed him on that. But on Sunday, May 26th, Schweitzer was actually interviewed by the RCMP, and on Thursday, May 30th, the Alberta Crown Prosecutor's Service stated that based on recent information, they would be seeking an out-of-province prosecutor to oversee the RCMP investigation. This is huge. Combine that with the fact that to date there have been over $70,000 in fines issued by the election commissioner because of improper conduct surrounding the UCP leadership race, and it seems to be becoming increasingly clear that there's a lot more going on than anyone in the new UCP government wants to admit. $70,000 buys a lot of cookies.
Cookies!
Not yet, but in due course.
Oh.
Next up, we're doing another installment of our ongoing segment, Meme of the Week, or 2 weeks, maybe sometimes 3. One of the quickest and easiest ways to oversimplify issues and then spread false information is through the use of memes. We see them all the time, and we're almost always seeing them when somebody else has shared them. Let's ignore the fact that more often than not, political memes are the pure embodiment of confirmation bias, where we choose to believe a thing because it aligns with or reinforces our existing beliefs. Instead, let's just focus on facts. This week's meme is one that's been widely shared, talking about the fact that Canada apparently has unemployed trees. Basically, it's operating operating on the notion that Canada's forests operate as a carbon sink, or that they absorb more carbon than they produce. It then uses that information to prove that Canada doesn't need a carbon tax because we absorb more carbon than we produce. And that was true right up until 2001. But ever since 2001, whether it's through forest fires, pine beetles killing trees, or just natural decomposition, Canada's forests have emitted significantly more carbon than they've absorbed. What that means is for the last 18 years, Canada's forests haven't been able to absorb any carbon emissions because they've been too busy producing more carbon of their own than even they can absorb. With that, please send us the memes that you come across, because while we know we won't be experiencing a shortage of lies easily shared on the internet anytime soon, we want to see what memes you can come up with. Send your submission to thebreakdown@gmail.com, and maybe we'll send you a cookie in due course. For our last segment of The Breakdown, we wanted to highlight something positive that happened recently. A couple of weeks ago, all of the leaders of the major political parties in our province, the UCP, NDP, Alberta Party, and the Liberal Party, all came together to sign a letter asking the Canadian Senate to accept the amendments that have been made to C-69, as well as vote in favor of the amendment package. In layman's terms, the Canadian Senate was able to propose amendments to C-69 that all of Alberta's political parties like enough that they believe that Bill C-69 should pass with those amendments. Let me say that again. Jason Kenney wants to Bill C-69 to pass. And if that doesn't deserve a cookie, I don't know what does. We'll see you next time on The Breakdown.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah and I'm the senior context correspondent here on The Breakdown. Some of you might be wondering why we've been going on and on about cookies this episode. To explain, back in November of 2010, AHS President and CEO Stephen Duckett lost his job after an interaction with the media went horribly wrong. Rather than answer the questions that the reporters were asking him, Duckett kept repeating the same answer: "I'm eating a cookie." The Premier at the time, Ed Stelmach, said that Duckett's treatment of the media was unacceptable and said of the interaction that it was offensive to all Albertans. We're not sure why we would think that that was relevant to anything going on in politics today, but we're going to play you a video of the incident for context in due course, or maybe right now. Woo! Cookie!
I think people do want to hear directly from you, though. Is there a chance that you could just speak with us just for a second?
No, we've got
I don't need a cookie.
What do you think of Ross Sherman's criticism of AHS and criticizing that you've been making knucklehead decisions? Go ahead, Jay.
Sorry?
Don't you think Albertans want to hear what you have to say, Doctor? Well, we'll wait for you to finish.
Do you have a response to some of the criticism that MLAs are directing directly at Alberta Health Services?
I'm still eating my cookie.
Okay, well, we'll give you a second.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got a meeting
Sure.
to go to, so.
Dr. Duckett, can you explain why you won't stop and talk?
We can wait. We don't mind waiting. Is there any way that you just for a minute, just to take a? I think people are interested in hearing from you, sir.
I'm interested in eating my cookie.